In the fairy tale criminal justice system, citizens are represented by two equally important groups: the prosecution, who ensures order, and the defense attorneys, who uphold the rights of the accused. These are their stories.
Members of the jury, we are gathered here today in fairy tale criminal court to consider the most grave and solemn of accusations. The defendant, Snow White, stands charged with murder in the first degree.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, an egregious offence has stained the honour of the fairy tale land. We are convened today to confront a crime as chilling as the longest winter, one that speaks of betrayal, of long festering animosity culminating in the ultimate act of violence. On the night of the Enchanted Kingdom's annual royal ball, beneath the facade of celebration, a sinister act unfolded. Snow White, driven by years of bitterness, resentment, and humiliation, entered the evil queen's private bedchamber armed with the deadliest of weapons, a poisoned apple. The prosecution will demonstrate through undeniable eyewitness testimony that Snow White deliberately poisoned the evil queen, leading to her cowardly demise. We will lay bare a history of hostility, including her well-documented feud with the victim. This trial is not about fairy tales or bedtime stories. It is about justice. The evidence will show, beyond any shadow of doubt, that it was Snow White and Snow White alone who delivered that fatal fruit, silencing her rival forever. Justice must and will prevail.
Listen closely, for I speak from the space between worlds where truth finds its voice. I am Morgana, the so-called evil queen, but my true story begins now. You see me now as I truly am, not the monster they painted in their tales, but a woman who loved too deeply, trusted too completely, and paid the ultimate price for another's ambition. Snow White stands before the court today, accused of murder in the first degree. How fitting that the innocent princess, beloved by all, should finally face judgment for the blood on her hands.
We're live outside the Grand Palace Theatre, where an unbelievable scene is unfolding tonight.
The question isn't just if this movie is good, it's if it will change filmmaking forever.
We've even heard from legal scholars debating the merits of the fictional case online.
I haven't been this hyped for anything in my entire life. I'm not even kidding.
Justice for the Queen! Justice for the Queen!
All right, people, listen the hell up. They call me Snow White, but don't ask me why. It sure ain't how I describe this scenario. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. This dress is way too frilly. But I didn't ask for any of this. 1 minute I'm polishing floors and dodging my stepmother's side eye, and the next, I'm on the run. How do you expect me to run in these high-heeled slippers? So there's this evil queen with a vanity problem, and she wants my heart on a plate. They say she's the fairest of them all, but let me tell you something. She's also the scariest of them all.
I was 7 years old when she entered my world, a storm-born child like myself. But where I brought questions and curiosity, she seemed to bring answers and light. My father, King Frederick, saw in her the daughter he wished I could be, pure, untainted by the gifts that marked me as different from birth, unmarked by the strange dreams and visions that plagued my sleep even as a child. The castle of Elysia had been my sanctuary until her arrival. Its ancient stones held memories of my mother Ravenna, whispers of power that flowed through bloodlines older than the kingdom itself. I would walk the corridors at night, feeling the pulse of magic in the very walls, understanding even then that I was connected to something greater than the mundane world around me. But Snow White's presence changed everything. Where once I had been the center of my father's attention, suddenly I became a shadow in her light. Where once the servants had smiled at my approach, now they hurried past with averted eyes. Where once I had felt at home in my own skin, now I began to question everything about myself. I loved her as only an older sister can, with fierce protection and desperate hope that she might love me in return. I shared my secrets, my fears, my dreams of a world beyond the castle walls. I taught her the names of flowers in the garden, showed her the hidden passages through the stone corridors, whispered stories of our mother Ravenna in the darkness of winter nights. I told her about the visions that came to me in dreams, the glimpses of futures that might be, the voices that spoke to me from the spaces between sleeping and waking. I showed her the herbs that Seraphina had taught me to recognize, the ones that could heal or harm depending on the hand that gathered them. I trusted her with the deepest parts of myself, believing that love would protect what vulnerability had revealed. But love, I learned, can be the cruelest weapon of all when wielded by hands that know exactly where to strike. As we grew, I discovered my true nature through forbidden paths that led deep into the ancient forest. Seraphina, my mentor, my guide, my connection to the old ways, taught me to read the language of herbs and roots, to understand the whispers of wind through leaves, to touch the pulse of life that flows beneath all things. These were not dark arts, as the court would later claim, but the oldest wisdom, the knowledge that connects all living things in an endless web of being. Under her guidance, I learned to brew potions that could ease pain, to weave spells that could mend broken hearts, to commune with spirits that dwelt in the spaces between worlds. I discovered that the visions I had experienced since childhood were not madness, but prophecy, not curse, but gift. I began to understand that I was not broken or wrong or evil. I was simply different, connected to powers that most people feared because they could not comprehend them. In those sacred groves I found myself, not the cursed princess the court whispered about, but a woman of power, passion, and purpose. With my huntsman, my first love, my truest companion, I discovered what it meant to be fully alive. He was the son of the forest, raised among the trees and streams, understanding the natural world in ways that castle-bred nobles never could. Alistair saw me not as a princess to be protected or a prize to be won, but as a woman to be loved. He understood my connection to the wild places, my need for freedom, my hunger for experiences beyond the narrow confines of court life. With him, I could be myself completely. Not the dutiful daughter, not the proper princess, but Morgana the woman, Morgana the sorceress, Morgana the dreamer who dared to imagine a world where choice had meaning. In Alistair's arms, surrounded by the ancient wisdom of the forest, I discovered what it meant to be truly free. But even paradise has its serpents, and mine wore the face of sisterly love. Snow White discovered us in our sacred space. She saw me in Alistair's arms, saw me claim my own desire, my own body, my own choices. She witnessed the transformation that love brings, the shedding of childhood's skin, the emergence of woman's power, the birth of authentic self from the chrysalis of expectation. I should have seen the calculation in her eyes, the way she catalogued every detail of what she witnessed. I should have recognized the cold assessment behind her gentle smile, the strategic thinking that was already turning my moment of vulnerability into her weapon of choice. But I was drunk on love, blinded by trust, convinced that the sister who had shared my childhood would protect the woman I was becoming. I trusted her with my deepest secret, believing that sisterly love would protect what romantic love had created. I looked into her eyes and saw what I thought was understanding, acceptance, even joy for my happiness. How naive I was. How completely I misread the calculation behind her gentle smile. She went to Malakar, my father's advisor, that shadow weaver who had been pulling strings since my mother's death. Malakar was a creature of ambition disguised as loyalty, a man who understood that power lay not in the throne itself, but in the whispers that shaped the thoughts of those who sat upon it. He had been waiting for an opportunity to remove me from the line of succession, and Snow White had just handed him the perfect weapon. Together they crafted the perfect trap, a web so intricate that I walked into it willingly, believing I was walking toward freedom. They understood that in a kingdom built on tradition and propriety, a princess who claimed her own sexuality was a princess who had forfeited her right to rule. They knew that my father, for all his love, would choose the stability of the realm over the happiness of his daughter. Snow White revealed my lost virginity to the court, not out of moral concern or sisterly protection, but out of calculated ambition. She knew that scandal would force me into a political marriage, would strip away my independence, would transform me from beloved princess into trapped queen. She understood the game better than I ever did, that in a world ruled by men, a woman's power lies not in her strength, but in her perceived purity. The revelation was delivered with perfect timing, perfect phrasing, perfect emotional manipulation. She came to my father with tears in her eyes, claiming she was worried about my safety, concerned about my reputation, desperate to protect me from the consequences of my own choices. She made it seem as though she was sacrificing her own comfort to save me from myself. My father, King Frederick, was a good man but a weak one. He loved me. I never doubted that, but he loved his kingdom more. When faced with the choice between defending his daughter's right to choose her own path and maintaining the stability of his reign, he chose stability. He chose the easy path, the expected path, the path that would cause the least disruption to the carefully ordered world he had spent his life building. The engagement to Prince Aldrich was announced within days. I was not consulted, not asked for my opinion, not given any choice in the matter. I was simply informed that my future had been decided, that my body had been promised to a man I had never met, that my life would be lived according to terms I had no part in negotiating.
Bow to me, child, or I'll see your bones turn to cinders.
But I'm done hiding. That huntsman did me a solid, and now I'm ready to pay back that favor. It's time to storm the castle, crack that magic mirror, and show the evil queen once and for all exactly who she's fucking with. I had it with these motherfucking apples in this motherfucking forest.
Look, what happened at the royal ball was obviously tragic. Nobody's denying that. No one's like pro-poison apple here. Obviously. But listen, folks, let's not jump to any hasty conclusions, because the truth, the real truth, is complicated. Or maybe it's simple, and we just haven't figured it out yet, and that's pretty tough, especially when you're, like, famous, like Snow White. They're gonna talk about motive. And, okay, maybe Snow White and the evil queen weren't total besties. Maybe they didn't, exchange friendship bracelets, and maybe they had their disagreements, like who got to live in the castle and who had to live in the woods. Normal kingdom stuff. But does that mean murder? That's a huge leap. Like over a dragon. Huge. Metaphorically. And this ball. Everyone was there. Everyone. It's like if something bad happens at a party, you don't just go blaming the person whose name sounds most like a weather condition. You gotta look at all the party goers, because frankly, the evil queen wasn't exactly Miss Popularity. There weren't a lot of people sending her get well soon cards, if you catch my drift. Like that mermaid lady, she always seemed a bit shifty to me. With those shells, and Cinderella, she had that whole shoe thing. Could be a motive? Maybe not? But that's what we're here to discuss.
Objection. Your Honour, that is not what we're here to discuss. Counsel is engaging in wild speculation about individuals not on trial and offering no basis in evidence. The deceased's general popularity or lack thereof is not evidence, nor is it relevant unless counsel can connect it to a specific alternative perpetrator with actual proof. This is irrelevant and frankly grossly prejudicial.
Sustained on all counts. Jerry, Pumpkin, are you trying to give Ms. Stark an aneurysm before lunch? Either tell this jury what evidence you actually have that points away from Snow White, or move on to your next point.
Admissible points, right? Very important. Okay, my point is, there were other people there at the ball who maybe didn't like the queen. That's a fact, right? People were there.
Barely. Proceed, counsel, and try to build a bridge to relevance sometime this century.
Look, all we ask is that you just keep an open mind, like a really open mind. Because honestly, this is all just a totally normal, totally reasonable, big misunderstanding. And the real killer, the one that's not Snow White, is still out there. somewhere.
Objection, Your Honor. Defense counsel's claim of a real killer is baseless, unsupported speculation. This statement is an improper attempt to mislead my jury and prejudice their understanding of the facts. I request his entire opening statement be stricken from the record.
Ms. Stark, I appreciate your zeal, and believe me, I sympathize. Objection to the real killer comment is sustained. Jury, ignore that. But striking his whole speech? Honey, if I start striking every foolish thing Jerry says, we'll never finish this trial. Request denied. All right then, prosecution, you may call your first witness.
Don't worry, we got this.
Please state your full name and occupation for the record.
Cinderella. Princess Cinderella. But most people just call me Cindy now. I'm retired from, scrubbing floors. These days I'm mostly just attending balls, charity events, state-hosted dinners, and being excellent at my many subjects.
Thank you. Cindy, were you present at the Enchanted Kingdom's royal ball on the night the evil queen died?
Yeah, totally. It was a big event. Anybody who's anybody was there. It was festive.
And did you see the defendant, Snow White, at this ball?
Yeah, she was there, definitely. Kinda hard to miss. Very intense aura. Not really vibing with the whole, happily ever after theme of the evening.
And how would you classify Snow White's demeanor that evening?
She seemed perturbed. Like deeply perturbed. Like she knew Kung Fu, but for feelings. And she was about to use it. On someone.
Someone?
Objection, Your Honor. Someone could be anybody. How does he know who someone is if she hasn't said who someone is yet?
Jerry, counsel is asking the witness to identify the someones he just mentioned. That's called direct examination. It's how trials work. Overruled.
Good point, Your Honor.
Cindy, to whom did Snow White's perturbed demeanor appear to be directed?
Oh, right. Mostly the evil queen, I'd say. There was some serious ocular pat-down action taking place. And I don't mean the hot kind. Very focused, like a laser beam. But with her eyes.
Can you recall specifically what happened at midnight?
Absolutely. I was involved in a conversation with Prince Zendaya. It was getting, pretty serious, but I had to go. Midnight's always been, kind of a big deal for me. Old habits, I guess. So as soon as the clock struck 12, I bounced.
Did you see the evil queen on your way out?
Yeah, I saw her in the hall. She left early, too, and was going back to her bedchambers.
Objection! How does Cinderella know she was going to her bedchambers? Maybe she was going to the Royal Library, or the Dungeon Snack Bar. That's pure speculation!
Jerry, baby, while your enthusiasm is noted, that objection is called cross-examination, and we're not up to that part yet.
Oh yeah, that sounds right.
Do you have maybe another objection, a more procedural objection, perhaps regarding the foundation of the witness's last statement?
Objection. Lack of foundation?
Your Honor, defense counsel just received improper coaching from the bench. I object to your assistance.
Mrs. Stark, do I look like I'm wearing a bad motherfucker t-shirt to you? Sustained on lack of foundation. Counsel, please clarify how Cinderella knew where the queen was headed, and Jerry, get your objections straight.
This is going well.
Cinderella.
She was holding the key to her bedroom in her hand.
How can you be sure it was the key to her bedroom?
I guess, actually, I'm not sure.
Boom.
But when she took it out of her pocket, she said, "I'm going back to my room. Oh, right, the key. Oh, wait, here it is."
And do you know where Snow White was at that very moment?
Yeah, she was standing in a hallway just outside the ballroom. In the shadows, Very stealth mode. Like if you've ever seen someone trying really hard not to be seen. Snow was crushing it. But I definitely saw her. Because I see everything.
It sounds like you got a good look at Snow White. Was she holding anything?
Oh yeah, definitely. She was holding a basket. With apples, red ones, lots of apples. Which looking back seems kind of relevant considering the whole poisoned apple situation.
And was Snow White doing anything unusual as the Queen walked past?
No, not really. But she had this look in her eye, like that time I lost my dog. It made me run away faster.
To be clear, Cindy, at midnight you saw Snow White hiding in the hallway, holding a basket of apples, watching the evil queen leave the ballroom alone. Is that correct?
Wow. When you put it like that, kinda seems like she did it.
Your witness.
Magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all?
You've asked this before. Maybe go take a nap. Snow White is the fairest, my queen. No cap.
After everything we've heard, there's only one witness who can truly speak to the heart of this matter. The defense calls Snow White to the stand.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we've sat here together. We've listened. We've watched a strange show unfold. A trial with dwarves telling lies, magical bells, mirrors spitting rhymes. I don't blame anyone for feeling confused. I sure as hell know I am. But let's get one thing crystal clear. There's an accusation hanging over my head calling me a murderer. Y'all hear that word and your minds run wild. It's easy, isn't it, to paint a picture of me as a monster? But before you decide who I am, let me tell you who I have been. You know the name. Snow White, princess, fugitive. But I was a child once, a daughter, a girl who lost everything when the evil queen arrived. My father, my home, my future. Y'all see the fairy tale. But I lived a nightmare. I felt the sharp edges of betrayal, the cold shadows of exile. I've known fear deeper than any of you can imagine. And yes, anger. Anger so thick you can taste it. I've dreamt of revenge. Who wouldn't? But here's the difference. The real difference. Dreaming of justice ain't the same as dealing death. Anger ain't action. Resentment ain't poison. And pain does not make a murderer. The woods were my sanctuary. That wasn't an adventure. That was survival. And yes, there were days filled with bitterness so sharp it could cut glass. Does that make me a killer? Or does it make me human? Someone pushed to the very edge. Someone who had everything taken from him. Someone who had to fight just to see another sunrise. They call me the fairest of them all. But that ain't me. That's a label someone else chose. The evil queen's envy branded me. And now this court brands me again. Do you know what that means? It means you're judged not by what you do, but by what people think you are. I've carried that weight since the day I started running for my life. It's a burden I wouldn't wish on any of you. That night at the ball, I returned to my home not to kill, not to give in to my need for revenge, but for justice, to finally face the woman who cast me out into the darkness. But my weapon was never poison. It was truth, speaking my truth to power. It was strength. Being able to stand up and tell her she didn't own me anymore. They say the mirror sees everything, that it knows everything, that it knows the truth. But is the truth always so easily packaged in the way things appear on the outside? Or is it something more, something deeper? Something that a reflection, no matter how magical, can never truly capture. The mirror showed you my surface. It didn't show you my soul. Truth isn't just what your eyes witness. It's what your heart understands. 'Cause I'm Snow White, motherfucker. And I'm about to put a bullet in this bedtime story. Now pass me that apple.
We're live outside the premiere of The People v. Snow White, where the jury is now in session, right here on the sidewalk.
She's innocent. 100%. The prosecution had nothing but smoke and mirrors.
She had motive, she had opportunity, and she had a basket full of apples. It's an open and shut case.
Okay, was Jerry a good lawyer? No. But did he prove reasonable doubt? Absolutely.
Oh, she did it. We all know she did it. And honestly, good for her.
It wasn't about the law. Jerry made you feel she was innocent.
Sophie was terrifying. The way she stared down witnesses, chills.
Your guy was crying. Sansa was a shark. There is no competition.
The whole People v. Snow White trial is a metaphor.
Is it legal? Is it ethical? Who cares? This is the price of true art.
It's not about the verdict. It's about forcing a Supreme Court case on digital copyright. I declare it legal. Case closed. Now who has my pocketbook? Hear ye, hear ye! The fate of the princess rests with the viewers at home.
Okay, so we have two choices. The future of the franchise is literally in our hands.
It's simple. You vote in the comments, you decide the sequel. If we vote guilty, we get a Prison Break movie. Snow White in the Enchanted Kingdom, Supermax.
Vote guilty. I want to see her shank a guard with a sharpened candy cane.
Think of the action, the suspense. Snow White leading a prison riot. Vote guilty.
But if she's innocent, we get a political thriller. Snow White taking her rightful throne.
Vote innocent. I want to see her navigate the complex politics of the royal court.
Snow White becoming a queen. Vote innocent.
Do not just like the video. Go to the comments and vote. It's your duty.